Emily Elizabeth, and I'm the host of the What Fulfills You podcast, a show for and about individuals always seeking to be their best selves. On this show, we talk all about building the mindset, finding the right careers, creating meaningful relationships, and so much more. Welcome to the What Fulfills You podcast. Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of What Fulfills You. My name is Emily Elizabeth. I'm your host. And for today's episode, we are diving into 4 ways you can use your time more wisely. And this is especially for those listening who are in your early to mid, even late 20s. And this is broken down into 4 different segments: finance, health, relationships, and self. And everything I'm sharing in this specific episode is very much connected to my own life and how I've structured it, how I've built it since college. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I get a lot of questions around how I have come to this point in my life. And I'm so grateful. I'm also very lucky in a lot of ways, but I also can look back to how I set very specific intentions and goals and took certain actions throughout those years that led me to this place. So a lot of it was also not by accident. And so for those of you who are either ready to make that shift in your life, or you are listening and maybe you've discovered me as a college student or recently graduating and you are now like, hey, I want to jump on this sooner than later, then this is a great place to start. And I know with this episode coming out during the end of 2025 and going into the new year, I think a lot of this is also very applicable as you set your intentions and have that momentum of going into a new year. So, with that being said, I always start off with the first section that I wrote down, which is around finance. And I wouldn't say that any of these are necessarily in the order of importance, but finance was the first one that I wrote down. And the reason why I know it's so important to be financially savvy earlier on and like using your time more wisely here is because the earlier you start, the easier it gets later on. And there's a few reasons for that. I mean, number one, when you don't have big bills to pay yet, and maybe you have some financial support from your parents, or maybe not, or maybe you just simply don't have a family yet and you don't have to help raise one yet, right? Like it's easier to start with the basics and learn when you don't have as much pressure, is what I'm trying to say. And so, wherever you are at, but especially if you are in your 20s right now, take the time to learn about finance and not the intricates, but just the basics. So, learning how to spend, save, and invest your money. Especially when it comes to investing, that probably seems very scary for those of you who do not work in finance or have never touched anything near finance, and maybe you rely on your dad or men to know more about it. But this was something that I realized a couple years ago that I wanted to have empowerment in my life around this. And it is not to say that I am super savvy as an investor or I'm a super expert on it, but I will say that given many conversations I've had with friends and peers and whatnot, I can tell that I do know more information than the average 20-some-year-old. And this is why I'm sharing it with you, because I think it's so important and healthy. And when you get this part of your life in check, you can have so much more opportunities because of that decision you made for yourself. So, in regards to investing, I'm not going to give specific advice, but just you probably have heard of the concept of compound interest. And if you haven't, that's okay. Compound interest, in the most simplified way of me explaining it, not the dictionary, but me explaining compound interest, is just as simple as this. You put your money in an investment account and it grows rapidly the longer it stays in there. So the first 5 years, it's going to have slow growth. But as it gets to year 8 and year 10 and year 12, that's where your money starts to like double and triple and so forth. And I'm not using specific numbers, but I'm just saying that I think that this piqued your interest and you didn't even know anything about compound interest. Just go and do a Google dive on that. Um, I personally would recommend, I've mentioned this book before, but if you have not gotten into anything financial related yourself, look into the book I Would Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. A great book. It sounds very cheesy, but I promise you it's not cheesy. There's a lot of actionable steps in this book that I personally took around the age of 24. And I remember just feeling so empowered by learning about high yield savings and closing down my then basic Wells Fargo savings account and switching to a high yield savings account. For me personally, I use Capital One, but there's a lot of advice in there that you can take, do your own research, and see if that works for you. And I think that's really all you need to know at this point. And if you are, again, more curious, then that's where you should go and learn more yourself. But if you don't know the basics on how to spend your money, how to save, and how to invest, this is a huge no-brainer to spend your time on doing this because I know so many women, especially in their 20s, who don't know what to do with the salary that they make. And when I say don't know what to do, they don't know how to disperse it accordingly. And then they end up feeling broke because they're spending it in the most stupid way. And I say that lovingly because this is not taught in school and it seems like an unattractive topic to think about as a girl, right? Like we want to spend on our coffee and our fashion stuff and buy the shit that we want to buy. Like that is so normal and I am one of those girls. But for me personally, there's nothing more scary than not being aware of my own finances and more importantly, not being able to use the income that I make to live a life that is connected to the things and values that I want and that I embody, right? And so I'm staring out of my beautiful New York apartment right now, in part because of that dedication I had a couple years ago and early on in college, where I think at that point in my life, I was just very aware that I did not want to ever end up in a dynamic where my partner has more leverage, mainly because of financial reasons, and the person would have an element of control over how I spend my own money, or, maybe it's not my individual money, but the money that became our family money. And maybe this person might be like, because I'm the one mainly making the money, then I should have a bigger final say, and I personally never wanted to end up in a situation like that. I wanted to feel empowered to make my own decisions according to my values and what I feel is best. And like the saying goes, money is power in many ways, but money is power in the sense that, girl, if you want to live in that dream apartment, you have the option to figure it out. If you want to buy that dream bag, you don't have to wait for someone to buy it for you or to gift it to you. You know what I mean? It's again, that's not taking away from the people that may want to do that for you at some point in your life. That's separate. But my point, and someone that I really look up to, Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, she also talks about this, like there is a beautiful, empowering feeling of being able to, particularly as a woman, to make your own decisions and live very freely in connection to your aura, your values, and who you are at your core, because you have the financial means to make those decisions. And I'm sure there's a lot of women from 50 years ago and onwards that would want me to share this as well, that would want me to push forward this beautiful, empowering feeling for women to be able to create that stability in their life because women back then were not able to create that stability in their own life. And I'm sure some of you guys know the stories. Like that can be really scary. And so go get that bread, girl, but not only go get that bread, but if you're making a six-figure salary and you haven't put in intentional thought into like what am I even investing in? How am I saving? Like what percentage am I putting away? Am I putting it into a high yield savings account? If you never even heard of a high yield savings account, look into that. Why is high yield savings relevant? Why is that beneficial to me? Where's the best place to store my money? How much cash runway should I have? Like, learn about those things, and I'm not going to dive into specifics, but because I'm not the expert, but I will say I have a general solid knowledge and it's so empowering. And I want every single woman listening to this podcast to also eventually get there in whatever shape or form, but you deserve that. You deserve that life. You deserve those opportunities. So take them for yourself. Okay. The second way you can be using your time more wisely is focusing on your health. Now, I'm going to acknowledge that growing up as a former competitive figure skater and tennis player, I already had, I guess, an advantage in a way that like my exposure to health and wellness and fitness was pretty early on and very natural to my lifestyle. To be fair, that did change a little bit in college. Naturally as a college student, I was more relaxed. I was eating a lot of junk and, I didn't really get serious about my physique and like the workout aspect until around junior year of college. Like I started going to like certain classes. I started to do Lagree, like which is basically, intense Pilates. And I just started like really, really honing down on that and like starting to get toned and fit. And when it comes to eating and like eating cleaner, I didn't really get into that until I was like, I want to say 26, so about 2 years ago. And in general, I've always, you know, ate clean, right? And I think most of us often feel that way. But unless you're really like hyper mindful about like the groceries you're buying and like your protein intake and all of that, which became the game changer for me, I realized that eating clean is very broad. So, my personal journey with health, I will say, started with working out physically, and then the second part became how I'm eating. And I kind of realized throughout my 20s that they're hyper correlated, but also it matters more truly, and I can see it in my body of how I'm eating more so than my actual workouts. Now, I'll dive into the workout part because I think I definitely have a lot more expertise in this. I think some of the reasons why we often get bored of working out or don't feel inspired or motivated to is because we just haven't made it exciting, right? Like, honestly, guys, I don't get super excited about going to the gym because I'm just lifting, I'm strength training. But it is why I only strength train about 2 times a week, and then I do Pilates usually like once a week. And then the rest of it is tennis or skating or something that's sports related. And I think that's a really good balance for me personally and my own goals. But I will say throughout that process, and especially over the past 2 years, I swap my time of, watching Netflix or, spending time with people that aren't lifting me, that don't make me feel really connected to the person I want to become. I have swapped that slowly but surely for things like more tennis and more skating or now coaching skating, right? And more Pilates classes. And how that looks could be, in my case, I tend to do my workouts in the morning. So I will often say no or not really have certain plans with other people that require a late night on like a Tuesday or Wednesday, right? And living in a city like New York or LA, like sometimes that can be the case. And so, or in general, even if you are just around people that are not as disciplined, they might drag you into doing something that you end up like staying out late or like staying past a time that you ideally would want to. And again, once in a while is different, or maybe on like a Thursday or Friday night that's different. But I like to create more discipline, especially Monday through Thursday, because like more like your discipline and the way you live is your lifestyle. Your lifestyle becomes just who you are. And so if you want to be a more health-centered person, you want to get in better shape, you want to lose some weight and build more muscle, then you need to find ways to actually incorporate that into your lifestyle. Because if it's not part of your lifestyle, aka a few times a week, it is hard to self-identify with the thing that you want to be, right? So, wherever you are at right now in your health journey, I personally would recommend do not make a big jump from, let's say, one time in the gym per week to 5 times. Make it a realistic jump and actually track your consistency over a span of 4 to 5 weeks. So if I was in the gym right now 2 times a week, which this was once the case for me back in like junior year of college, I had a really good friend who, with great experience on habits and whatnot, advised me to increase it to 3 times a week only. So not four. So don't get too ambitious. Increase it from 2 to 3 and track that in your calendar for 4 to 6 weeks, and making sure that for those 4 to 6 weeks, you actually hit every single week 3 times a week, right? And if you don't, then you need to find a new way to hit that goal and actually make that consistent. Because if you're not making something consistent, it's really difficult to actually imagine it to be your lifestyle, right? So if you can't hit 3, you definitely can't hit 4, but you really can't hit 3 consistently until you do it habitually, right? So that's personally what I did back in the day. And then again, once I slowly kind of got bored of the gym and the Pilates and all of those things, I started to mix up my workouts. Like I said earlier, like strength training about twice a week, Pilates or Legree is like that's what it actually is. I take SLT Pilates in New York, and I do that about once a week, and then so that's already 3 workouts, right? And then the other 2 to 3 days, it's tennis, skating, or pickleball, or yoga, right? All the above. And then even on like my slower rest days, I'm trying to do like a long walk. So, winter, summer, doesn't matter the weather. I try to do like a 30 to 45 minute walk outside, and I like to do like an early morning, like 6:45, 7 a.m., make it 30 to 45 minutes, come home, feel good, got some movement. So that's what I might do instead of like yoga, or if I want to not do an intense workout, that's what I'm usually doing. And that's about like 6 days a week of full, activity right there. When it comes to learning how to actually eat cleaner and actually feel inspired and motivated to live that kind of lifestyle, for me personally, you guys, I actually would follow a lot of different pages, but mostly like 2 to 3 pages on Instagram of women that eat like very specifically. And I love their skin. I love their content. I love how actionable it is for me to save a post knowing like, okay, they ate these many eggs or this ground beef for lunch. Like I was able to kind of like copy that and again incorporate that into my lifestyle. So that's my personal hack. If you don't know where to start when it comes to eating cleaner, I would recommend to follow 1 to 2 different women, especially like holistic nutritionists or coaches or whatever online that like talk about this, that give you ideas for meal planning, for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. I certainly have had 2 or 3 guests now that are all functional and holistic nutritionists. So I highly recommend finding those episodes. I will link those in the show notes as well if you're curious. But that for me has been helpful because again, it's not like I come from that world, but it's something that I realized that it's going to benefit me in the long run. So I might as well pour into it now, right? It's like investing, it compounds over time. That's going to be a big theme of this episode too, is that everything you put your time into, it compounds. And so my last thing on health, my why around health is if I'm feeling sick and I'm not feeling strong, I can't wake up and go play the sports that bring me joy. I can't wake up and go on a walk with my friend. I can't wake up and perform at my highest level in my work. I can't wake up and make content. I can't speak on this podcast. I can't go do interviews. And so that is always my reminder for without my health, I cannot do the things that I want to do in this life. And so that for me gets me out of bed. That's the thing that gets me to do the things that I want to do. And look, I get it. Sometimes it takes a moment of crashing and burning to get to that realization yourself. I've seen it in some of my own friends as well. And it is really sad because you want to help other people or you want to give them a nudge. But like everything in life, we can only know the importance and relevance of it once we experience it ourselves and make the conscious decision of, okay, I really want to make this change. I believe that I am a health oriented person. That is my identity. And therefore, I'm going to live it. And also, I'll add there's nothing better than looking good, feeling good, and playing well. That's my whole motto when it comes to like my why, right? Look good, feel good, play well. It's not superficial. It's just like genuinely when you physically look good, you also feel good, you feel more confident, you go out there, you rock your stuff, you feel the best. And I want that for all of you guys. You all, again, you deserve that. So you might as well go and take ownership of that part of your life and figure out how you're currently spending your time, right? And what is preventing you from being able to make those things, such as eating more cleanly and spending more time in physical movement, what is holding you back from being able to implement that, right? So you might be thinking, well, I work a lot of hours and then I get exhausted or I don't have time. Okay, what would it look like to restructure your sleep schedule so you can either, work out before work or after work, right? Like just maybe throwing in a weekend day. Like, what would that look like? Because everything comes down to your priority and the way you allocate time, right? So just think about that for yourself and maybe sit with that, journal it, whatever helps. The third area that I am so grateful that I spent time in this, especially starting out in my early 20s, is in relationships. So, for those of you who have not been along the ride for this podcast for a while, I got into podcasts myself when I was 20 years old as a junior in college because I went through my first breakup and my first heartbreak. And not only was it my first breakup, but it was a breakup that also involved my then boyfriend moving out of the apartment we were living in together, and then me taking care of the dog that we had together and taking care of the dog by myself. And so, not only that, but I also transferred universities at that time, or like 2 months later. And so, a lot of things were happening in my life. And I remember at that point in my life, I did not have the support system that I have today. Did not have friends to go to. I did not have people to talk about things with. And after that breakup, I started listening to people like Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss, and the guests that they had on. And through listening to those episodes, I came to realize that the foundation of a fulfilling and happy life is within our relationships. And after realizing that and kind of pondering that myself, I was like, okay, this is going to be my intention going into 2018 and going into the rest of my time at Chapman University. I am going to find like minded women to become friends with, women that care about their health, women that care about their future, women that I could possibly be my bridesmaids. Like, I wanted that kind of energy and I went seeking for it. I also transparently, I think I showed up that way as well for other women and other girls that I met in college and outside of college. And so that's how I ended up attracting those kind of relationships. And so, whether you feel like you have a great group of friends right now, or maybe you do feel a sense of, you can call it loneliness or lack of deep connection, which I've felt that myself in my own life before, okay, many years ago. That is why I am constantly repeating this concept of investing your time into your relationships, because they compound with years, right? Like I think about my best friend from college, or one of my best friends who I've known now for 9 years, and she's known me since I was 19, and she's a couple years older than me, but she's married now and she has a second baby on the way. And, I think about my best friend from college who met me during a time that I was going through a breakup, and then I got back with the guy, and then later on, like, I broke up with him, and like she's lived through that with me. And I think that's something that's so beautiful about friendships that compound over the years, which of course not every friendship will, but the right people will be along your life for the years. And that is so powerful, and I have felt the benefit of that over the past 8 years, from the time that I set out this intention of, okay, I am going to have these types of people in my life, and I'm going to pour my energy and time into being there for them. And if that comes out to be that there's a beautiful friendship and they end up being there for me, that's amazing. But having that long-term support goes a long way. And hopefully, you guys have one or two or maybe more friendships and relationships that have been around for several years, maybe even 10 years. Like, I'm thinking about how I got coffee with my best friend from middle school. So that's 16 years of friendship. And I spent a lot of time in New York hanging out with my one friend from high school, who we've known each other since we were like 15 or 16. So, yeah, that's like over 10 years, right? And those are the main ones. But again, I'm looking back into college as well. Like, I have a lot of college friends that I've known for like 8, 9 years. Like, that's a long time. And when it comes to how you can spend your time, like, what do I mean by like spending your time there? Like, take the time to actually reach out to them, check in on them, have FaceTime calls, or if you guys live in the same city, like, make time to like go get dinner or coffee. Like, be intentional, like, be the one to reach out, be the one to initiate, like, don't be afraid, like, create that connection, be the one that leads the connection, right? You don't always have to wait for people to come to you. In fact, if you wait all your life for people to come to you or for people to take the initiative, you are going to be waiting for most of your life, right? It's a two-way street. So you have to be willing to pour into those relationships, put yourself out there, and recognize that not everyone is going to reciprocate, and that's okay. Just through time, experience, and repeated experience, you will recognize which ones are worth investing in, which ones are aligned with you, which ones share very similar values to you. And through that process, you will also go through different ruptures or friendship breakups or friendship falling outs or even romantic breakups. Like, that is unfortunately just part of life. But like the saying goes, I would rather love deeply and get hurt than to never know what that feeling is at all. And I apply that into both my platonic friendships slash relationships and my romantic ones. And I have been through the ringer. I have felt certain, sadness and hurt and pain and whatever from different falling outs and breakups. But luckily my first one was when I was 20. So I kind of, got a nice little, what do you call it? Like a little gift and life lesson early on in life. And I'm like, okay, this is the reality of life. It can be hard. It will hurt, but you will get through it. And I have zero regrets pouring into any of my relationships across the board, platonically and romantically. I've always had a selfish gain, like, to me, being the one to give and being the one to, like, love and like feel love towards friends and romantic partners, like I am the one gaining that. That's my perspective. I am gaining by giving. Like I'm not looking to receive anything in return. Like there's a beauty to feeling that connection. So I would say if you are someone right now that is maybe not pouring into relationships enough, or you find yourself quote unquote too busy with work and other things, which I'm not discounting that you're not too busy, but keep in mind, too busy is just another way of saying that you are currently prioritizing other things before this, right? So you might ask me, okay, how do you allocate time in your busy schedule? For me personally, I get excited when I have plans, when I have something to look forward to. So I often am reaching out to my friends like, hey, do you want to grab dinner on this day, right? Or do you want to grab coffee over the weekend? Or, for my other entrepreneur girlfriend who like lives in my part of town in New York City, or like my little neighborhood, we'll do morning walks together, right? And so it doesn't have to be like coffee or an activity or whatever, but sometimes it could be, hey, let's go on a early sunrise walk together. Let's like get our asses out of bed. Let's catch up, That's one way to do it. And even for my friends that are long distance or like live in different states or even countries, I often will plan overlapping trips, or like maybe let's say a lot of my friends in California, when I'm out there, when I'm doing work stuff, I also create time. So I pre-plan ahead how I'm gonna spend time with each person that I want to see. And I reach out like, 1 or 2 weeks ahead. I'm making reservations ahead, or I'm planning. But that might seem so structured for some of you, but unfortunately, that's sometimes like the only way you can have that connection. Like sometimes if you just let life slip by, it'll just keep going. It won't pause for you. So you have to jump ahead, take initiative, and that's been my biggest reward is the support system I have now across the world, from my old roommate who now lives in London, my dear friend who's been on the podcast as well, but like I met him 5 years ago, he lives in Italy. Like hopefully I'll be able to see him when I'm in Milan for the Olympics coming up. My friends in California, always being able to see them, catch up on phone calls, all over. It's amazing. I did not have this 7, 8 years ago. I certainly didn't have this level, 4 or 5 years ago. So it has grown with the years. And I will add one more thing. Even though I'm an entrepreneur, even though I love what I do, even though I am working somewhat often, I put my relationships first. If I have a friend going through a hard time, I will pick up the phone. I will stay on the phone with them, for an hour or two, like whatever they need, right? Like that's just part of the give and take in relationships and how connection is built. So I highly recommend pour into those relationships. They will take you far. Okay, last but not least, the fourth area of your life that you could be using your time more wisely on is in yourself. Literally, just the self. And what I mean by that is, what are your interests? What are your hobbies? What are the things that get you excited, right? Like the basics. It can be anything. Maybe it's painting. Maybe it's playing the piano. Maybe it's bowling. Maybe it's pottery. Maybe it's listening to music. Like what are those things, right? And my question for you is, are you actually allocating time for the things that make you as an individual excited? Are you allocating a few hours a week? Are you able to combine any of them? So, like, an example for me is that my personal hobby I love is tennis and pickleball and playing sports. It also crosses over as a workout. Like, obviously, playing tennis for 90 minutes or 2 hours, or playing pickleball for 2 to 3 hours is a real workout, right? So that's an overlap. By the way, side tangent, if you get to play tennis with close friends or play pickleball with close friends, that's another overlap, because then you're also building connection there too, right? So something to keep in mind when you're thinking about your life or going into the new year, right? Like, how can you redesign and restructure your life so that you can merge more things together? But on the other hand, I would say, like, looking back on my life and how I got to where I'm at now, some of the things that I was randomly pursuing, especially in my early 20s and even while I was in college, was photography, blogging, podcasting. I also tried YouTube at one point, like I wanted to vlog. And through that pursuit, even though I did not become a YouTuber, even though I did not actually become a photographer, like where I'm getting, I mean, well, I actually did get paid for a few different shoots, but my point is that I didn't necessarily have a specific goal with each one. And this is related to the self, right? Because when it comes to the self, the like you as a person, you should feel like a kid. It should feel like fun. It should feel like play and curiosity and all of that. And so I remember I didn't know what the hell I was doing with blogging. I had my own WordPress back in the day, but I knew that I really enjoyed writing and sharing my thoughts. And whoever reads it, so be it, right? But I wanted to share that online. I wanted to do it for me. It wasn't for viewership, it wasn't to build a career. It was just because I enjoyed it. So I'm asking you, what is that for you? And are you spending some time doing that? I think something that I want to incorporate more going into the new year is I recently found pickleball to be a really fun way to connect with my parents. They play pickleball 6 days a week. And I find it fun. I find it engaging because it's a game, right? So I'm probably going to add more of that into my life because it brings me joy. It's a nice hobby, but it's not necessarily like my sport and, something consistent, but it's probably something I want to do. Something else I'm bringing back more consistently is writing. And if you didn't know, I have a Substack. It's like the What Fulfills You Substack, and it's all linked in the show notes as well, in every episode. But that's where I've also been slowly contributing to again. I'm not making money off of it. It's not like, but I'm doing it because it's an interest. Writing is my hobby. Or right now, I started to take French because I love French culture. I love the fashion. I do love the food. I travel to France and like particularly south of France and Paris quite often now. So I'm like, you know what? I speak other languages. I might as well try to do that for French. So I'm taking private lessons right now. And here's the thing, like I actually bought a private lesson pack during Black Friday where I got it basically on sale. Like I got it at a discounted price. So that's me being intentional with how I'm spending money. It's not like I'm paying necessarily quote unquote full price for what it would have been, but I got that at a Black Friday deal. So I'm like, hey, this is really something I want to do. I've talked about it for a while and now I'm doing it. I've already taken 2 lessons. I'm loving it. I'm learning. My brain is fired up when I'm in there. So I love it. But think about that for yourself. What are those interests? What are those hobbies? I only know one person in my life. She's a good friend of mine. I mention her many times in this podcast in general, but she is in her life, like I know that she dedicates actual a lot of time towards her hobbies. Like she takes guitar lessons. I think she does singing lessons as well. She's in a band. She goes to a lot of like music events because of it. So that's her own thing. Like she doesn't do that with friends. She just does that with herself and for herself. And I think that is so healthy for each person, right? Like instead of binge watching something or spending your time mindlessly scrolling, what could you do an hour a week or 2 hours a week that is just a hobby for you? And for me, that has evolved over the years. Obviously, blogging and photography and all of that, it was originally a hobby back in college and out of college, but that became something I ended up slowly getting paid for. Like, I incorporate photography in my service offering through my marketing agency. It's part of a retainer that clients pay. Like they get that service. And it's really cool. It's a hobby that I picked up with no specific goal, but then it became a skill and an asset that I have that I can offer for companies to pay for, right? Through my marketing agency. So just some food for thought. I hope, regardless, that you are pouring into yourself and finding ways little by little to level up in your own life because you deserve that life. You deserve to feel connected and aligned and to wake up feeling like, fuck yeah, this is the life that I chose. This is the life that I have built over the past few years. Like, even if you're starting from zero right now, like you're finally like, all right, I'm gonna do this, you will look back 3 years from now even and be like, wow, a lot has evolved over 3 years. And maybe you're in your first couple of years and now you're ready to like actually be even more micro intentional and you want to make some big shifts. This is it, right? Like little by little each day and just being aware of what it is that you need to add or remove in your life. And I hope whatever it is that you choose to do with your time, that it brings you an element of joy and fulfillment and growth, and that it enables you to live the life that makes the most sense to you. I hope this episode was helpful. As always, I put a lot of thought into this one, and I've been chatting a lot with those of you who are active followers of mine on Instagram or active listeners. And so I would love to chat more with you. If you have been a longtime listener and you've never DM'd me or you have DM'd me in the past, I would love to chat with you. Please reach out, share your thoughts on this episode or the podcast in general, or something that you're navigating or what you're currently focused on going into the new year. I would love to hear from you. Seriously. So the DMs are open. You can message me on my personal Instagram at Emily E. Duong or the podcast Instagram at What Fulfills You. Thanks again so much for tuning in and being a podcast listener. I love you guys, and I will chat with you all in the next episode.